tactically some apps, and then people are bringing their own devices into the organization. So that's introducing new challenges to the security team and the IT departments, how to manage this thing. At HP, we look at it from 3 different layers. I call it authentication testing, session testing, and transactional testing. Authentication testing is this the right person on the right device accessing the right information? We want to make sure that device cannot be breached. The second is your session testing, right? So you're running your session, and you're browsing or you're on some app just to make sure that data cannot be breached out of that session, right? Nobody can break into that. So there's a security testing around that one. And in session testing, traditionally, other pieces also work, like functional testing, performance testing, and I'll talk that also. The third one, which is very important, is I call it transactional testing, right? So now you're pushing and pulling data back from that app or whatever transactions you're working on. Is that connectivity, is that pipe secure when the information is going out or coming back? Nobody's doing SQL injections. It's properly secured. So when you look at our capability, what we try to do is, these are the few of the things. So real device testing, let's go back to the discussion we had, right? So now you have these devices. You want to make sure these devices are secure. It can be tablets, it can be your laptops, it can be your smartphone. Doesn't matter, right? We have the capability to test end-to-end those things. Device compatibility testing, as Ed was talking about, there's so many devices coming out from so many makes, which creates some concerns, like your GUI interface has to work on all those apps. The rendering of the app and image has to happen. So how you make sure that every device you're pushing out there can actually display that information, what you want, in a right manner. So that's why it's very important, as Ed was talking about, to choose the right platform to build those things. So write once and deploy many times. That concept you have to do, right? If you start building those apps on a traditional way, on a native solutions or native platforms, you will see it is a really big problem to maintain that application going forward. The cost of ownership becomes too much, and then it becomes very hard to justify the return on investment on that. Mobile application test automation. So what is happening in the industry? I will talk about the trend. Any organization, when they start looking at the testing, it's done by their own tester, or they ask other vendors to provide some testing resources, right? So it's more a staff augmentation model. Once that matures, it moves to a more managed service model. They say, we want you to manage this application. Tell us how much it will cost for next 6 months or a year, something to work on. The next step we have moved forward was testing as a service model in HP, and we are the market leaders in that, where we provide you the tool, the resources, and everything on a model where there's a set commitment for a year or 6 months, and you can flex up and flex down, right? But still it sits on your infrastructure. The app is sitting on your client's organization. What we are doing is we're moving towards more a cloud, because your apps will be moving into the cloud. So how you make sure we can test in the cloud environment that. And that gives us a very competitive edge, because being an infrastructure company, we really understand the whole infrastructure spread and the end-to-end connectivity on that one. Network testing is another major concern in the market today. You may build the app is working in a test library. When you put into production, it doesn't perform to those standards, because there's no better understanding on the carriers, right? So if you look at the carriers today, globally, or even in North America, you will have companies in States or in Canada working on different network configuration. CDMA, GSM, now the LTE is coming up. Even in a single, say, a CDMA configuration for every telecom, it's been done very differently. So if it works on one network, it may not work on the other network. So you have to have partners who can actually help you to guide you in your architecture and in the development, how to structure the code properly so that app can perform properly when it's put in the production. Security testing is, again, we talked about, it can be on a physical device, It can be on an app, or it can be on connectivity, end-to-end, right? Localized testing, I will talk about, people interpret it in two different ways, so I will talk from both angles, right? Localized testing, so you have an app which has to be deployed globally, and you want to tailor it to the right language, right context, right reading content, right? That's one way of doing it. So we have a team, dedicated team, who actually goes for the human interface, so they can read the app properly. It's been configured that. So we have those skill sets. But on the other side, you're deploying this app, and not always all the testing tools work. You have to do real device testing. So you have to mobilize workforce into the field out there and able to do the testing and see if that app is performing as per the SLAs or the expectation of the client. So we, as part of our global footprint, we can also do that. Ed, can we go to the next slide, please? Tested.
In terms of their encroaching on your data. So one of the things that we make sure of when we're testing is that your app is rock solid, that it can't be encroached, because there's a lot of rogue apps out there that are trying to steal information from your app. And a lot of folks don't realize that, don't even think about that until it's been breached. So that's another important part of the security testing we do. You think about, the basics.
One point I would like to add to Ed's discussion, right? Traditionally, when we did testing, you have a dev environment, you have a test environment, you transition, and you put into production, right? So you had the time to check it. In mobility, you cannot create that simulation model because cost of creating that infrastructure simulation model is so high. So what you have to do is you really need to understand what you're putting into production and how it works and quickly fix it. So it changes the mindset how to do it. That's why it's agile frameworks, small scales, work interactively with the client, and try to fix the problem, having the access of right resources to solve that problem. Because one team cannot solve this thing. So you need a network to help you to manage that. So I will talk about this one. This is one of our clients, and you can see they're based out of Portland. And what we talked here, I will try to stitch together, right, points here. And we have done this project, they are our reference, and we are working very closely with them. So they have embedded sensors in the shoes which send biometric data to the iOS platform through a Bluetooth, right? So just like your blood pressure, your glucose, God knows, other metrics, all those things. And your speed, how you're running, how high you're jumping, and all those things it collects. And then through the different carrier networks, it comes to Amazon Cloud. Through the Amazon Cloud, it comes to our HP data center where we are hosting this infrastructure for our client. As part of the Olympics, they want to have 60 million downloads by this month, June. So we start this project in January. There were only a couple thousand application downloads, and the performance of the app starts going down, right? So they engage us to come and help them. How can we optimize? This is more a B2C application. And we asked them, what is your scope? How many downloads you are expecting in June? And we looked at the whole thing. And their cycle of development is only 3 weeks. They put a concept, application is out on the 3rd week. That's the cycle. So we didn't have much time to set up the processes, the teams, and all those things. So we will provide you performance engineering testing services. Basically what it is, we want you to work with your architecture team, your development team, your testing team, and your maintenance team, right? We want to talk to them how they're doing it. We want to see how you're doing it, and we'll advise you. Basically, we will identify where the bottleneck is happening. We will tell you why that bottleneck is happening, and ask your team to fix it. So this was a totally different approach we introduced in the market today, where instead of us doing the work, we are helping the client to do it. And project went really well, and now they are our de facto partners. Any new app goes out, they engage us on those things. So you will see that the markets are changing, markets are shifting. The traditional way of doing testing is no more good because it's agile, it's